Lastly are the individual zones of optimum functioning, developed by Hannon in 1986. Athletes have individual differences and all have preferences to the level of anxiety that is optimal and works best for them. Some individual zones of optimal functioning characteristics include the feeling of full control, effortless performances, feeling completely confident and performing at optimal levels of arousal. Hannon found that there are individual differences in the way that performers respond to anxiety, and some athletes performed well when anxiety was low, although others succeeded when they had high anxiety. He concluded that every performer has an optimum level of anxiety and at which they perform the best. Hannon then constructed the eyes-off model. This model suggests that the optimum level of anxiety is not a certain point, but a bandwidth. The athletes are neither psyched up or exceeding threshold, but are simply within or outside their individual preference anxiety zone. The image on the screen shows the eyes-off model. There are 3 zones which show when the athletes perform best. Introverts and novice performers are most likely to work in a lower eyes-off zone, as a lower anxiety level helps them focus, and extroverts are more likely to perform better at a higher eyes-off, as they have learned to control their anxiety and to be more outgoing. Nick and Sarah are more likely to work best at a lower eyes-off, as their high levels of anxiety cause them to have low success, compared to Rachel, who thrives off the atmosphere, so is more likely to work better at higher levels of anxiety. Some positive factors of the individual zones of optimal functioning is that most research supports the findings, and that it is a better explanation and predictor compared to the inverted U theory. However, there is no explanation as to how individual zones of optimal functioning develops, and why the best performances are more likely to be in the optimal zones. Lastly, they are not situational or personal factors that predict a certain optimal zone. For example, not all netball players thrive at a low anxiety, and more experienced players don't always play better at higher levels of anxiety. In order for people to perform at their best, we need to recognise signs of arousal and anxiety so that we can help athletes with coping strategies. To help the performer decrease arousal and maintain arousal. This will help to develop a performer's confidence and perception of different factors. There are many different techniques for controlling anxiety and stress, and these can be either somatic or cognitive. Some somatic techniques used are biofeedback, which is where information about the changes to physiological variables are shown on a monitor. It also shows the readings of variables associated with somatic anxiety and distracts their attention away from the cause of anxiety in order to try and reduce the reading and anxiety. Other techniques, known as breathing control and centering, use breathing as a way to focus on relaxation and concentration. Some cognitive ways to deal with stress and anxiety include imagery, visualization, attentional control and cue utilization, thought stopping, and self-talk. Imagery is forming mental pictures inside the head of successful performances, which may decrease their anxiety as they feel as though they know that they're going to do well. And it can be used either to create an expected experience, a new situation, or to recall how they did in their last performance. If they did really well in their last performance, they can visualize that and use it as a way to decrease anxiety, as they know that they can perform how they want to. Visualization is very similar to imagery, and it's creating a mental image of what will happen or what you want to happen. Attentional control and cue utilization is maintaining your concentration on the appropriate cues. For example, in netball, if you are looking for someone to pass the ball to, it's concentrating on the most important factor, which may be making sure that defenders don't intercept passes and making sure you're passing to someone who's in a space. Thought stopping is the development of Thought stopping is using a cue, an action, or a word to redirect towards a positive thought. So if they are feeling negative, they can go, oh, but it's okay because of this. And self-talk is where the individual changes their negative thoughts to positive thoughts about their actions and replacing them with positive statements. The peak flow theory was developed by C.S. Giamennetti. Flow is a state of optimal experiencing involving total absorption in the task and creating a state of consciousness where optimum levels of functioning often occur. This was stated by Jackson in 1995, and it can be shown on the graph. So this is flow. Flow is a period of peak performance, so it's when the player performs best, and it's intrinsically rewarding, and it's when the performer feels totally involved in the performance, and they don't feel as though they're giving too much effort, and they don't have to concentrate on it really hard. If the level of the skill is too low, and the performer doesn't feel as though they're working hard and they're feeling as though it's too easy, they will not be within the flow section, therefore they'll be bored, and it's the same but the opposite. So if they feel that the skill is too hard, it could cause the player to become anxious and feel anxious. Some characteristics of flow include clearly defining goals, a loss of self-esteem and time awareness, and a combination of emotionally high and personal best performances. It also helps if they have clearly defined goals. So flow is basically when the performer is playing at their best and they don't feel as though they're working too hard, they don't feel as though they're working not hard enough, and they just feel as though they're enjoying themselves.